Thank you for joining me. This is a three-part live pertaining to Casey White. He is now claiming a new victim that he has murdered. Bryan Kohberger does not want cameras in the courtroom. And LGBTQ curriculum is up for debate in public schools. Some parents do not want a curriculum in the schoolhouse. Three-part live. Thank you for following the content. I'd like to bring you some updates to breaking news. Please check my community board via the YouTube queue for said updates. Thank you. Doctors are saying the wildfire smoke is unhealthy, even if the fire that is brewing in Canada is far away. I noticed on Tuesday evening while I was out driving that the sky looked awfully murky. And I thought maybe it's because of all the traffic that has entered into the Knoxville, Tennessee area. We have a lot of people moving here from California and out west in different demographics. And I thought maybe it's from the traffic, but now I find out that there has been wildfires brewing in Canada. So perhaps some of that has infiltrated down here. There's also an air quality alert for Atlanta, Georgia tomorrow. If you live in the Atlanta metro area, please be aware of the air quality. Just bringing you said updates pertaining to breaking news. And also Biden vetoes bill that would block student loan debt. I believe it's up to $20,000 of debt. And Pat Robertson has passed away at the age of 93. Thank you for joining me. Let's get on with this content. Thank you all so much for joining me. Casey White is claiming a new victim, and he's also been sentenced to life in prison for the escape that he and Vicky White, no relation, exacted last year from Southern jail. Very interesting information. News Nation is the source pertaining to the escape. Thank you for your time.
Quick hearing, the judge sentencing Casey White to life in that escape. It was emotional because Vicky White's family was inside the courtroom. Her mother was there. The prosecutor said her mother intended to speak initially, but that it was just too emotional in the moment, so she wasn't able to speak in court. But the prosecutor basically saying, that Vicky had this stand-up reputation, that she was a wonderful woman, and that Casey White took advantage of her. Then the defense had a chance to speak, and Casey White actually stood up and spoke to the judge and said that he was in love with Vicky, that they were in love with each other, that they had this love affair, that Vicky was the only person who ever really talked to him or hugged him in 6 years while he was behind bars, that they developed this relationship, that she trusted him, and that they came up with this plan, and that's what led to the entire escape. He said that the only thing that Vicky regretted in the entire thing was disappointing her family. So he spoke for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then the judge handed down the sentence of life in prison.
Bryan, can you tell us a little bit about the family's reaction to hearing, this outpouring from Casey? Certainly you talk about the mom being too overcome with emotion to read the statement that she wanted to in court today and to say her piece. What is their reaction to him talking about hugging their daughter, about the relationship and how much he loved their daughter?
Yeah, so Vicky's mom, and I believe it was her sister and some other family members were seated right in the front there, sort of taking it all in. I had seen her mom before in the past covering the story. And you can just imagine what this was like for them. I've actually talked to her mom before, and this all came as such a shock to them when it happened. I mean, again, everyone we've talked to said Vicky was this upstanding woman. Even the former sheriff who just recently retired was just telling me again that all of this came as such a surprise that he still can't really believe what happened. There was even a deputy outside the court room this morning who I was chatting with who said Vicky was at one time her boss and she still can't believe it, that it was totally out of character. And I took some notes here because Casey White's speech to the judge was a couple of minutes long. I want to read you a little bit of what he said. He said, "I feel like the most hated man in the world. I loved Vicky and I wouldn't drag her name through the mud. We did fall in love. I love her with all my heart. She's the first person who showed me any affection in 6 years, first person that I hugged in 6 years, first person who believed in me in 6 years." He looked right at Vicky's family, which was really a powerful moment because he's this like really, really tall, big guy standing there, and her family is sitting right there in the front row. And he looked right at them and said, "I apologize to the family. The one thing she regretted was hurting her family." And it was shortly after that that the judge sentenced him to life in prison.
Okay, Bryan, I know you've been tracking this case from the very beginning, and in some ways it must be surreal for you to be back as well. We certainly appreciate the update as it's happening. Bryan Enton live for us in Lauderdale County, Alabama. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Go to
News Nation is the source, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So Casey White has been given a life sentence for his escape with the aid of Vicky White, who is no longer alive. It is alleged that she shot herself inside of that vehicle last year, and it was noble of him, whether you believe the content or not. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. If you believe the commentary that he gave in court, but I commend him for at least speaking of what she said, because I'm sure she did tell him that she regretted disappointing her family for this affection, love, whatever word you want to use, she had for him, and vice versa, he had for her. And I'm sure it helped the family to some degree to know that she did think about what she did, but she made the sound decision, which she did. She made the sound, lucid decision to help this man. She knew what she was doing was wrong. And I believe when he said that, she said she had regrets in disappointing her family. And one and all, I'm sure, are going to ask themselves, why in the world would you risk your livelihood, your reputation, to run off with this man after helping him escape from a jail, knowing the charges that he had, even if it was just misdemeanors and he just wanted to get out of jail? It was wrong to aid him because you are committing a crime by aiding a prisoner to go out of jail or prison, no matter the charges. And it's worse to many people because they were felonious charges of murder. I'm also going to bring you content that he's claiming a new victim. And before I get into that, I still want to emphasize what happened in court, what he said. Why did she help him? Were they in love? He claims that he was in love with her. She was in love with him. She cared for him. She was the only person that hugged him, talked to him in his 6 years of being incarcerated. And that's the thing about the human spirit. No matter the crimes that a person has committed, done, exacted, been accused of, they're still a human being. And they can feel emotion for whatever they want to feel. And some of us can't grapple with that. How can you be this notorious person, killing human beings, drugged up, geeked up, robbing people, murdering people, but then say you love somebody or need love, affection? It's because you're human. And that's the way it is. Whether he did this or that, been found guilty of this or that, he's still a human being. And he's still going to have desires to be held, to be talked to have sexual relations. That's just a part of being a human being. Those things don't go away just because you've committed a crime or you've been accused of a crime and or been found guilty or not guilty of a crime. And when you hear these words, you're going to jog your memory back to all that mess that went on. It was a very hot topic in the U.S. last year. You're going to tell yourself, like, well, why would you all concoct this escape? If you cared anything for her, why didn't you tell her this is not a good idea? So people are probably still wondering whose idea it was, his or hers. You're also going to hear from the next commentary I'm going to bring you that he's deemed manipulative. The sheriff says he's manipulative, that he didn't kill this other person. He's claiming he killed a woman and a child. He's probably just saying these things because he wants to get out of the jail down there where he is because he doesn't like the jail. So are the new allegations true or not that he's making about murdering somebody else? See, this lets you know that possibly his mind is jacked up, because even if I don't like the jail I'm in, why am I going to admit to a murder of somebody else so these prosecutors can try to pin a new murder on me if I want to get my tail out of jail, savage some bit of a life? But now he's been handed a sentence of life for escaping. It won't even matter about the other charges of murdering that elderly woman and the other charges he had gotten lengthy sentences for. Life is life. But when you know this, you know there's a chance you're not going to be getting out. That's the only bartering tool you have. Let me try to spend my last days in a place that I think I'll be comfortable. So possibly this is why he's making up these stories about murdering somebody and a child, a woman and a child. He wants to be somewhere comfortable because he knows he's never going to ever be free. Prayers to Vicky White's family. As you heard Mr. Eden say, her mother was too emotional to give a statement. It would have been nice to hear from her mother, to hear what she had to say. Maybe she should have let someone read her statement. I don't know if somebody read her statement or not, but it would have been nice to hear from the mother, to hear what she had to say about her child. But I'm sure Vicky was concerned about disappointing her family and possibly other people. Because no matter what you do in life, whether she killed herself or not, people are going to talk and people are going to assume things. And as you've heard in many commentaries pertaining to Vicky White, she had an upstanding record. Many people thought very highly of her, her co-workers, people who worked under her, and also the sheriff. They didn't have anything bad to say about her as a boss. And if there were some negative things, it wasn't a lot. Let's put it that way. Why did she help this man? What was it about him that led her to help him escape? What led her to even correspond with him? Because everything has to have a start. Why did she correspond with him? Why did she give him her phone number, address to talk and write and call? Why? Why do women correspond with men in prison? Phone, letters, loneliness, boredom. We've heard this from many women. Taking up with men in prison, even marrying them, even marrying murderers, knowing their crimes, knowing they're not ever getting out of prison. And some will say they do it because they know they're never going to get out. It's like a fairy tale. Something to do, boredom, loneliness. He's never going to get out, so I won't be a threat to him. Just going to see him, talking to him is good enough. But maybe in their rational mind, they know if they were to talk to him on the street and really try to have a relationship with him, they possibly would end up deceased. But it's still somewhere in your mind, you should be saying to yourself logically, why am I talking to a murderer? And we understand that many people have murdered people for various reasons, alleged self-defense, altercations, but they were pretty decent people, but they still end up getting time in jail or prison. But I don't think that was the case with Casey. He was out on drug fuel rages and killed folks. Hostage situations. And maybe had he not got on drugs, he would have been a decent person. I don't know. But I'm sure many are questioning that, including her mother. Why did she get tangled up with him? What was so special about this man, knowing his charges that were against him, knowing that he was also accused of murdering an elderly woman? Why would she want to be in the company of this type of person? And why would she risk her livelihood and her reputation and her job, pension, all that, to be with this man? Go on the run, switching cars, tags, living in fear of being apprehended. What kind of life could that have been anyway? Is love that strong, or whatever feeling she thought she had for him, to go on the run, looking over your shoulder? And in the end, she knew what she had done was wrong because she killed herself. I don't think he shot her. I think she killed herself because she knew she couldn't live with going to prison for the charge of aiding a prisoner out of jail. I'm now going to have to go back to the same place where I worked and sit alongside other criminals. She couldn't live with herself. That's my first story. Bryan Kohberger doesn't want cameras in the court. Second topic, everybody. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Big Angie, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Thank you for your time. Let's see what Mr. Kohberger has to say. This is a 3-part live, everybody. Oh, before I get to Kohberger, sorry about that. Casey White has claimed that he's killed someone else. Authorities disagree. Sorry about that. I got kind of sidetracked talking about he and Vicky's relationship. But once again, Casey White has been sentenced to life for the escape last year, aided by Vicky White. And now I'm going to bring you commentary that he is claiming that he has killed someone else. Excuse the discrepancy. News Nation is the source. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. 3-part live, everybody.
Notorious prison escapee Casey White is speaking out on the eve of his sentencing following last year's jailbreak. White fled with corrections officer Vicky White. The two had been having a secret affair while Casey was an inmate at the Alabama facility where Vicky worked. Casey was captured alive 11 days later, but Vicky was found dead with a gunshot wound to her head. Now, as Casey White prepares to be sentenced for first-degree escape, he is speaking out only to News Nation senior national correspondent Bryan, who joins us now with more. Bryan, that was a huge story when they were on the run.
It was, Elizabeth. I was literally chasing Vicky and Casey White around the country for about 2 weeks. The story was absolutely insane. I wrote him a letter, but I never expected that Casey White would call me, and I certainly never expected him to say what he said. It was a manhunt that captivated the nation. Longtime model employee and beloved jail administrator Vicky White went on the run with her inmate lover Casey White, the accused murderer escaping from the Lauderdale County, Alabama jail in April 2022.
Those of us who work for Vicky White and have worked with her for years, this is not the Vicky White we know.
The couple was on the run for almost 2 weeks until police chased them in a stolen car near Evansville, Indiana. Investigators say Vicky shot and killed herself. There were so many unanswered questions about why she threw away her life and career. And is Casey White a master manipulator? I started writing Casey in jail. He didn't respond much, but then on December 3rd, out of the blue, Casey called me from prison.
You were saying you needed to talk to me ASAP. What's going on?
What Casey said was shocking.
So did you say that there's a woman buried up there?
Casey told me several times that he killed a woman while him and Vicky were on the run.
Did you kill someone else? When was the person killed? I'm sorry, it's muffled. When did it happen? Oh, when you and Vicky were at the motel. So you killed someone at the motel?
It wasn't just one phone call. Casey called me again later that day.
Do you know how old the woman was? Why did you decide today to confess this?
I contacted Evansville police and the detective said they believed Casey was lying, that he had made false confessions before, and there was no missing woman. We did our own open records requests for missing people in the Evansville area and turned up nothing that matched the timeline.
Is it just him being manipulative in his own way? He's a master manipulator. Yeah, I don't know what his motive would be for telling that, those kind of stories or tales or sharing that kind of information. It hadn't panned out.
Detectives told me it's possible White was trying to muddy the waters going into his murder trial later this year.
Were you surprised that he called me?
Are we surprised that he called you? I'm surprised. I don't even know how to answer that. Casey White's attorneys also believe their client is lying.
Is there any chance that he did kill someone else while they were on the run?
Well, I think that's highly unlikely. We know of at least one other instance, and maybe more, where he's confessed to things like that. We believe in hopes of being transferred out of prison.
And the reason that Casey White was in jail to begin with, Elizabeth, was for the murder of a woman named Connie Ridgway. That trial is set to start this year. Some people involved believe he may be trying to muddy the waters and complicate things. And that perhaps is the reason that he called me with that false confession. His lawyers also think he may be trying to switch prisons. He doesn't like the prison he is in. They say that may also be an explanation.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on.
Is Casey White a manipulator? Did he manipulate Vicky White into planning that escape from that jail? And is he trying to muddy the waters by getting moved to a new prison facility because he does not like the one that he is currently in? You hear from the sheriff that he believes that he's a manipulator and that he has not committed any other crimes. There's no information to correspond with his allegations. And also his attorneys believe this to be a lie of their own client. So you find this information is interesting to hear the client, the attorneys, and the sheriff saying they do not believe he has murdered anyone. No one has come up missing that matches the timeline that he and Vicky were at that hotel in Indiana. And he also says it's a woman and a child. I would find it interesting to how he would have been able to kill her, get her out of the hotel. But we have heard of stories of people being murdered in hotels, left behind under the bed, or taken out in a bag or a tub or a drum, whatever. That's his allegation. Is he making it up so he can be moved to another facility? As I said earlier, when you know that you are not leaving prison, that you have other trials to attend where you are possibly facing life, you will use a bartering tool to get something out the deal. And though there's no death penalty on the table that I know of, he's already been found guilty and given a life sentence for the escape. He doesn't have anything to look forward to but life. Facing another murder trial this year of an elderly woman, that would be a bartering tool. Make up something so I can get the hell out of this place and go where I want to be. Go to a jail, prison where I want to be. Where I can coexist. Is that the reasoning for this allegation of murdering a woman and a child in Indiana? Is he a manipulator? Has he always been a manipulator? The one thing people need to understand about people who use drugs, you will become a manipulator if you have never been one. A liar, a thief, grand schemer, scammer, because you have to be able to get the drugs, attain the drugs. And somewhere down the line, if you cannot afford the drugs by means of working, you will have to find a way to acquire the drugs, which means you will possibly become a thief, a liar, a schemer, a scammer, and you will be a manipulator because that's what manipulation is. When you have to scam a person, lie to a person, deceive a person. Hey, I just need $20 till Friday. Hey, my check didn't come. Hey, my lights are off. Hey, I need this. And then they take the money to go get high. You will become a deceiver when you start to use drugs because you're trying to get high. So perhaps this is all he knows, depending on how long he's been using narcotics. Now you hear him say in that first commentary about Vicky in the life sentence courtroom hearing that he's in his right mind, he's lucid, he knows what he's saying. But that doesn't mean that he can't lie, even in talking and telling the alleged truth about his relationship with Vicky. how she felt guilt about her decision to help him go on the run. But in the same breath, he can also lie and say, oh yeah, I killed somebody too. Because that's all he knows is manipulation. And as I said, when you become a user of drugs, you will become a manipulator because you have to find a way to acquire the narcotics to get high. So you're going to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate people. And I heard someone say this recently. A young lady said, oh, I've never lied while using drugs. I don't believe that. She never schemed, scammed to get drugs. So you want me to believe in my right mind at 52 that you've always worked and spent your work money on the drugs. You never did anything deceitful or illegal in order to buy narcotics. It's very rare. You do have a few people who work to get high. They can still maintain employment and purchase their drugs without having to lie to people, steal from people, scam people to get money. Very rare. But when you are strung out, you do not work, you have no hustle, eventually you are going to be a manipulator and possibly a thief to acquire your drugs. And that's where deceits come in. I got to do whatever I got to do to get the drugs. So you will become a manipulator. And that's possibly why he is deemed a manipulator. Because usually you can't have one without the other. As I said, it's probably a very small percentage of people who use drugs, work every day and acquire the drugs without having to go out here to scheme, scam people and manipulate people to give them money. Once again, Casey White claiming a new victims out of Indiana. The sheriff and his own attorneys are saying they do not believe this is true. He's only using this as a ruse to get moved to another facility. And he's also been given a life sentence for his escape last year. 3-part live. Bryan Kohberger. Now we can get to Bryan. Thank you all so much for following this network. Bryan doesn't want any cameras in the courtroom. Who is he to decide what the hell he wants? Why? You don't want us looking at you, Bryan, to see your facial expressions and your emotions? Is that the deal? You don't want us to see you blinking and clenching your teeth and your jaw as you did in your first hearing with your attorneys to show that you are guilty. Once again, Pat Robertson is deceased at the age of 93. Biden vetoes bill that would block student loan debt. And there are wildfires brewing in Canada, and they are affecting the eastern seaboard and possibly making their way down. So if you see some murky skies, it could be possibly from the Canadian wildfires. KTVB 7 is the source of Kohberger objecting to cameras in the courtroom. This is this is quite funny. I hope there are cameras, because lately the cases that I've covered, there have been no cameras. The Cal City case with the West boys, Jacqueline Giselle West, Miss Lori Vallow, no cameras. And now we have this mess with Kohberger. We will see if there will be any cameras in court. Once again, KTVB7 is the source, everybody.
Kohberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students last year, doesn't want cameras in the courtroom. According to court filings, it's because of social media posts made about him that overanalyze his body language. Kohberger's trial is set for October 2nd of this year for the stabbings of Ethan Chapin, Dana Kernodle, Madison Logan, and Kaylee Gonzalez at a home in Moscow. So far, a judge has allowed cameras in every hearing, but a brief file on June 6th says Kohberger and his attorneys want more limited camera use in the courtroom. Kohberger's attorneys say that under the 6th Amendment, he has a right to a fair trial, and more access to viewing Kohberger in hearings could unfairly prejudice the trial. And you can read more about this right now at KTVB.com.
So it's he and his attorneys. First of all, it doesn't matter if you have cameras in the courtroom. It is up to 12 members of the jury to hear the evidence and follow the jury instructions by the judge and outlined during the trial. So it won't matter what a drawing says, what is said in court by witnesses, defense, and prosecutors. In the end, it's up to 12 members of the jury to decide his fate. They know they're not supposed to discuss the trial with other jury members or outsiders, whether sequestered or not. So in the end, it's up to the 12 people to decide his fate. The cameras won't have any bearing. It won't matter that they put a camera in there. There's a news clipping at the end of the day to say who said what, who wore a red skirt, black shirt, too much lipstick. That won't have any bearing on the jury panel. The jury will make the decision. The jury will be the ones watching his demeanor, listening to the witnesses, listening to the evidence, listening to the prosecutor's commentary and the defense's commentary. What do the cameras have to do with a fair trial? He's not being tried by the media. Rather, it seems that the media has tried him and found him guilty. The public has found him guilty. You still have some people out here that believe he's innocent. So therefore, it doesn't matter. They're not taking a poll and telling you to turn into this station or Facebook page and press yes or no if you think Kohberger is guilty or not. And somebody counts the vote like a legal voting system, and then they decide if he's going to be found guilty or not. He's not being tried by us. 12 members of the jury will give his fate. Third topic, LGBTQ curriculum debate. Should it be discussed in our public and private schools? News Nation is the source. This is my last topic for this live stream. Thank you for your time. 30 viewing. Let's get those thumbs up, everybody. Like, share, subscribe.
We showed you this video on Wednesday. Protests turning violent following a school board decision in Glendale, California. Parents have been taking their kids out of classes. They've been upset, demanding to see new Pride Month curriculum. They're upset over what their children are being taught about gender identity and the LGBTQ plus community. Police arrested at least 3 people. We don't know if the 3 people they arrested were parents or protesters or bad actors who somehow got involved in this large protest. But there was a similar demonstration in Montgomery County, Maryland, where parents shouted to protect our kids and family rights. This was in Baltimore and in Washington, D.C. The parents are saying no opt-out policy for approved books that feature LGBTQ plus characters and themes. A lot of people who were in this group of protesters were Christian and Muslim parents. You can hear that man leading a chant, "Let's fear God." Parents on the other side of the issue say it's important to teach all children about diversity and that families can look different. Senior contributor for the Federalist, Azra Nomani, was at the Maryland protest and joins me live. I saw you on Twitter. I was following just all of the comments, what was happening across the country, coast to coast, as we saw. What is this really about? I think a lot of people have a strong opinion about this, but why are these parents coming out to march outside of school district offices and to contest what the school is doing that has been going on for years, the teaching of LGBTQ plus curriculum?
Well, thank you for having me. What's going on right now is that parents are activated from Montgomery County, Maryland to the suburbs of Los Angeles because there is now a war on children happening within our K-12 school system. I am not being hyperbolic when I say that because I grew up in this country going to the public school systems, and the curriculum and the material that's being taught is nothing like our memories as adults. We are now moving, I just want to give a couple illustrations. A lot of people have heard about critical race theory as a concept. From it came this idea of queer theory, and that then became these kind of books in our pre-K, K school system. binary. And if anybody remembers, what it is like to be a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or raise one, they can barely remember to brush their teeth, tie their shoelaces. But now they are being taught the ABCs. And I'm a Muslim feminist. I'm a Muslim who believes, of course, in the universal right of everyone to exist in society with dignity and respect. But on this front, what has happened is the activists, that I call the Antifa activists in some cases in our communities, they are now, the Antifa are facing off against the mama bears because they are pushing these little hands to hold these books that have big ideas that they cannot process.
Yeah, and I know that in following some of your commentary and other people who are speaking out, some for, some against these protests, you said that this is an issue that's going to be defining for the 2024 election. You've also said you're not particularly conservative or religious, but what do you believe is the big danger to children with these kinds of books and this kind of curriculum?
Well, yeah, this is going to be the wedge issue of the election in 2024. These parents also have a chant, which was, "Are you going to vote?" And they are going to vote, and they are already figuring out slates for the Board of Education from Maryland to California. And why does this matter? This matters because at a time when we understand clearly the brain health of children is at risk right now, the identity issues really go to the sense of self that a child has during critical years of development. Parents know that this goes through ups and downs. We know if we remember back to our teenage years. And you need to have a clear sense of self in order to become a mature and stable adult. What's happening is this is a risk to children because this is messing with children's brains and minds when they are so vulnerable. And this is something that we all know as indoctrination. And I refuse indoctrination, whether it comes from any extremist in religion or non-religion.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find.
All right, that is a Muslim woman speaking who speaks universally about the world, the equal rights of all people, no matter your religion. Let's chop this up. May do a one live on this subject alone later on this week. Yes to the poll. You're saying yes, they should teach it, or no, they shouldn't teach it? Yes, this curriculum should be taught. I will post a poll after this live stream. I'm a Christian individual. I believe in God. And I do believe in equal rights for all people. Short, tall, fat, any race, religion, denomination. So what you have to tell yourself is this. If you think it's okay to teach this LG curriculum in school, then others will say the same. See, this is what you have to remember about prioritizing one group versus another. If you say, yeah, we're going to teach this, first you have to say, is it right to teach it? Number two, who's going to be the person to teach it? Oh, no to teaching this. Okay. Who's going to be the person to teach it? Because you have to ask yourself, who is going to be qualified to teach this information? Will they be biased in the teaching? Because let's just say it's exacted in a school system that, hey, each teacher has to say something about being different, being bisexual, gay, whatever word you want to use. What if the person is biased and they're really not for a gay person, trans? How's that going to work, he or she teaching this curriculum in the school? So this is why this community is not thinking straight. This is something that parents need to teach their own children at their own time and their own pace. As you hear this lady saying, young children are already vulnerable anyway to the world, to different various topics, different people, ways of living, thinking. Now you're going to get somebody in the schoolhouse saying, well, Johnny did this, and Johnny's dad has two dads, and Becky has two moms, and I don't think it should be taught in the school. I think this is a personal subject for a family to discuss with his or her children when they feel that it is time for their children to learn about same-sex identities and courtships, so on and so forth. Because you don't know who's going to be qualified to render this information, and you don't know if they're going to deliver it in a proper and unbiased fashion. That's where it will be a problem. The children are too young. And then you have to decide what age the children would be best to learn this information. Toddlers, preschool, kindergarten, 8-year-olds. What age will you all feel is appropriate to teach this? So that would be an issue if it was even allowed. Well, what age do we start? And then you have to think about how people are actually raised in America. People are more diverse now. We have different races mixing in with different races. You do see more commercials now showing transgendered people, gay people in commercials, 2 men hugging in a commercial, blah, blah, blah. More accepting now. And then the product is needing to be pushed to all demographics. So yes, we're going to have 2 women now in commercials, 2 men in commercials, 2 men pushing a kid in the commercials, 2 men with a child in the commercial. But that's a commercial. Yes, I agree. It should be left up to the parents. But you have to think about things thoroughly. As I said, is it right to teach it in school? What age group? Who's going to be the person to deliver the message? Will they deliver the message in a dignified and unbiased fashion? Then you have to worry about somebody coming to the school complaining about the issue. As you heard at the beginning of this commentary, you watch the video via the YouTube Q in my channel, you'll see that these people were fighting each other. Police having to get the people separated. Because people become violent when they feel like they're in the right of what they believe. Doesn't mean it's right what they believe, but we have people who act violent. And these are the same people who will say, I'm an upstanding citizen. And you've seen this with white on black crime, blue on black crime, nosy, messy Karens, neighbor issues, disputes, stand your ground issues, same-sex issues, trans issues, racist issues, storming the gate up at the Capitol. People become violent over what they think is right, what they think should be their constitutional right. Bearing arms. Do you see what I'm saying? The list goes on and on of I'm right, you're wrong, let me act a damn fool. Do you want people to now start coming up to the school hooping and hollering? I don't want my son coming home talking about a trans, pans, this and that. And if a child is accustomed to a woman and a man or being raised by just a mother, nobody else should be telling that child about 2 men and 2 women. No. A stranger doesn't have any business telling a child nothing about that. That's up to his parents to try to explain to him those issues when he or she feels they are ready. Because there will be controversy. You start teaching trans, pans, all this in school, because the list goes on and on of all the different names they call themselves. And due to the fact we've had all these issues of bathroom designations, should a trans person be able to use the opposite sex restroom and all that, that is why this is coming to fruition. The sports issue, playing on the opposite sex team, that is why this is now an issue. Because it's a hot topic, this community. And it's just going to keep being an issue. Because naturally, a lot of these people in this community feel they don't have any civil rights. They don't have access to medical. If they're dating each other, married, medical companies serving them properly as citizens. So see, the list goes on and on of the things they feel that they're not equally entitled to. But it's so broad, the allegations and of not getting equal treatment. Well, I want to go in that bathroom. I feel like I'm a woman. I want to play on that sports team. I feel like a guy. It won't stop. And I am against playing on opposite sex teams. We have teams for all sex, for the opposite sexes. Soccer teams for women, soccer teams for men. Basketball for women, basketball for men. You're a guy, play on a guy basketball team. You're a female, play on a girl basketball team. That's why these leagues are started. And we are fortunate to have schools that allow girl sports. And I do not believe a boy should be playing on a girl team, whether it's K through 12 or college or professional. That's my opinion. Bathroom issues, go in the bathroom that is designed for your sex from birth. I don't care that you feel like a guy. I don't care that you feel like a woman. And I've seen lots of women who identify as guys. They go into the women's restroom. I don't think many of them would dare go in a men's restroom for the fear of being assaulted, beat up in the guy's restroom. Because people have strong opinions of sexuality. So there's going to always be some issues with identity, strong opinions, and some people will act out violently. This is why you don't need to have it in the schoolhouse. Just like some people don't believe you should have religion in the schoolhouse. But back in the day, it was okay to pray in school, stand at the flag, but then somebody becomes offended, and here comes the complaint, here comes a lawsuit. Things have changed in our country. People's ideas and ways are different. A lot of people do not believe in God, do not believe in a higher power. And I do believe this is why a lot of people are wayward. This is my personal opinion. You do not have to agree. And I understand why some people don't want religion in school, because some people may get fanatical with it and start inflicting their views constantly. And then that's a problem. I get it. But if there is a Christian school, Presbyterian school, Catholic school, then they have the right to teach that in that school. And the parents already know there's going to be a curriculum. And if they have a problem with anything, they can go to the administrators and they can discuss it. And then they can decide if the parent, if they want to continue to let their child go to that religious school or not. That would be a separate situation. But no, nobody needs to be talking to a small child or school-age child about sexuality, period. Sex education. Now, I believe sex education should be rendered a little later for children, preteen up to high school. And it should be a choice if the child would like to take that class and by permission of a parent. Hey, we're going to be offering sex education in the school. And some may agree. Some people may say, well, I don't think you should teach sex education in school. That's fine. But I think at some point, children do need to know about sex. Maybe they don't need to be taught by a professional, because then we have to ask that. We have to, I guess, barter with that too. Is that person going to be proper to give information? Because then how far out could that subject matter go? It might go into the topic of stuff that we don't want the children discussing with a teacher. Different ways of sex. And then that will be a complaint. So hell, maybe not. I had to think about that for a minute. Because children are going to ask questions. This is the reason why it's probably not good to talk about religion, different religions, sexual identities in school, and possibly sex education, because children are curious and they have rights to ask questions. And all it takes is for a child to start asking questions, even in a sex education class. Well, what about oral sex and this, that, and the other, and anal sex? And then next thing you know, somebody go run home and tell the parent, well, Susie was asking the instructor this. And now here come the teacher, the parent running to the schoolhouse saying, well, I thought you were just teaching the basics of sex, how a baby's formed and this, that, and the other. But kids are curious and they're going to ask questions. And God forbid a teacher says too much of his own opinion, and then that's a problem. So maybe no sex education. You're entitled to your opinion. That's my third topic for this live stream. LGBTQ curriculum. Should it be allowed in the public school system? And if so, what age should it start the curriculum? Yes or no? I will put up a poll after this live stream. And maybe later in the week, this week is almost over, I might just do a one subject live on this and have a link drop where you can come up on a panel and give your opinion if it should be allowed, the pros and the cons of allowing this subject matter to enter our school system, public. And I also want to mention private schools, whether it be Catholic, Presbyterian, Christian school. Should it be taught even there? Because we know that if you believe in God and you claim to be a Christian, that God created woman for man. And as my pastor said, the Bible does not speak often of homosexuality. I think he said it's mentioned maybe 3 times in the Bible. So God didn't dwell on this subject, but he did speak of Sodom and Gomorrah and what he didn't want his citizens to be doing sexually. I do believe it was considered a sin to commit sodomy. So God has his rules. You either follow them or you don't. You're entitled to your opinion of the Bible or any other religious book. And that goes to religion. If we're going to talk about pans, trans, this and that, another group will say, well, I want my ideology talked about in school. All white race, all black race, all Hispanic race. To believe in God, don't believe in God. Buddhism, this and that. See, where does it stop? Where do you draw the line? Because if you have one group crying and moaning about what they don't like about the world, what they want done, then another group will come up and say the same thing. Native Americans can say the same. Well, we need to be talked about in school. We need to hear more about our plight in life in school curriculum, how we were pushed off the land by the white man. And we're still suffering today. Do you see where I'm going? Because many people don't like black people talking about their plight as slaves to freedom and how we still have problems as black Americans, profiling, beat up by citizens, shot up by the police, unconstitutional search and seizure of cars, homes. That's the point. Everybody's got a complaint. And this community feels they are not probably deemed serious as far as healthcare rights, healthcare coverage, bathroom issues, sport issues, now school issues, teaching it in the school. But what you have to remember, this is a personal issue. And I think it should be determined by the parent. We've also had curriculum issues as far as content in the school, such as books. I was hearing of that recently. A woman who wrote some books, now her books are not allowed in the school, taken from the library because a parent saw the book and the material and didn't deem it suitable for her child. It didn't want her child being taught this book content in the school curriculum. Although the book had been in the school curriculum for some time in the school library. See, this is what I'm saying. All it takes is a complaint. I don't want that. I don't want my child reading that, hearing about that. Same thing with how the United States was discovered. Slaves brought here, Indians pushed off the land. Somebody may not want to hear about that in the school curriculum, but it is what it is. It happened. It's not like it's fictional. Black history. Somebody may say, well, we want Black history taught in the school system. We want people to know what our race did to contribute to this great land. But then somebody else may come in and say, well, I don't care about what the black man did in 1502. You see, everything's a version. It's up to you to decide what you believe is the truth and not the truth. I've always told you that. Everything is a version. And it can only be corroborated with the receipts. But in the end, it's man who has decided everything as far as what you call a shoe, a car, who discovered it, who made it, who perfected it. A diamond is more valuable than a ruby. Gold is more valuable than silver. It's someone's version. Everything is determined by someone's interpretation. That is how the world came into existence. You either believe it or you don't. You're entitled to your opinion. But there's always going to be a complaint about something, and that is just the world we live in. Some of us are moaners, venters, complainers. Some of us are not. Some of us don't really care about what is going on in the world. Some of us just live, don't really give a damn about anything. That's just the way it is. Should this curriculum be taught in the school system? And as I said, who will be the person to render the curriculum? Will he or she be qualified? And how far into this curriculum will it go? So that's another thing nobody's thinking about. How far deep into the conversation is the teacher going to talk about trans, pans, bisexual? Because they can go too far off into the deep end and there'll really be some people raising hell. I don't want that my kid coming home talking about that mess, putting ideas in their head that it's okay for two men to be together, two women to be together, two men raising a kid, two women raising a kid. See, it's going to be what exactly? How broad is the subject going to go? See, that's why I said that community, and not to be, profiling when I say that community, because I don't want to keep saying the LGBTQ, that community, you're not thinking about how broad you want the subject matter to go. Because children are, as they say, impressionable. They're going to ask questions. So will the person speaking be able to answer the questions? And if a person is a heterosexual, they don't know anything about pans, trans, and this and that, how the hell are they going to explain it? Where are they going to go search? Google? They got to find somebody that wrote a book about all the different names. And these young people keep changing the names of what they want to be called, what they want to call us. As you hear in the Black community, they want to call a female cis. And some of us do not agree with that terminology. We're not your sister. You're not my sister because my mama didn't give birth to you. That's an old Black folks term. Hey, sis. Hey, sister. One Black woman saying that to another Black woman. You're my sister. Sister in unity. Sister in us being God's children. But how are you my sister and you're a man? You're not my sister because you're a damn man. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm not your sister because biologically you're a man and I'm a woman, biologically. So I'm not your sister. And I find that offensive to even call another woman that, no matter the race. Hey, sis. You mean, hey, ma'am. Hello, Miss Lady. Thank you for your time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BeGanji, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. This was a two-part live pertaining to Casey White claiming a new victim out of Indiana. He's claiming he killed a woman and a child. His attorneys and the sheriff believe he is lying, trying to manipulate his way to get moved to another facility. Bryan Kohberger does not want cameras in the court alongside his attorneys. They feel like there will be biasness in the proceedings being shown, which I disagree, because in the end, 12 members of the jury will be deciding his fate. And I do believe more cameras should be allowed in courtroom proceedings as they have been done before. And the LGBTQ curriculum debate. Should it be allowed in our public and private school system? Please take the poll on my community board. Thank you for your time. My weekly movie suggestion is the I-5 Killer, now airing on Lifetime. Mr. Pat Robertson has passed away at the age of 93. And our president, Mr. Biden, has vetoed a bill excusing school debt, college loan debt, and that will be very favorable to many people who do owe money to institutions. Amen. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. We're coming into the weekend now. It is Thursday. I will be back with more stimulating content, commentary. Like, share, subscribe to all in different platforms. Share the dream of this network, the Vault XL. I will be back later. Thank you for joining me.